So, really grateful that you were able to make it up here. That was super, super cool for both of us. I know we've been bugging you to get up to Canada for a while.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to just follow up with you a little bit and get a little bit more of like your story, because when you were here, we were focused on getting some content for the DDE channel and getting some very specific things out, kind of compressed. But I think it's really interesting to dive into like who our customers are and how they got into it and kind of understand their stories. So, tell us a little bit about your automotive history. Like, how did you get into cars? How did you end up picking this car?
Yeah.
And, how did you get into the stuff that you're doing now? How does that all tie together?
Yeah. I mean, cars are my life. I think starting from the beginning, got my license. Fast and the Furious had just come out right before that, and that kind of changed the game for everybody. I think the whole industry. Had an older brother, 4 years older than me, that is heavily into cars, so I blame him for a lot of this as well. So yeah, from a young age, I think 14 and on, cars basically took over. Buying my first car was a '99 Mustang GT in high school. My parents, gave me a little bit of money towards a practical car. If I wanted anything that was nicer, it was on me to work for it. So got a job young, started working, and bought my first car. Started modifying it immediately. Exhaust, lowering it, full aero. I wanted it to be super unique, even though it was just a Mustang. The car was manual, so another V8 manual. And it kind of took off from there. It really, really took over my life, and I can say that now. But looking back, even through high school, college, it was definitely a distraction that I was just so obsessed with cars. Had the Mustang, had a few Mustangs, had a couple Saline Mustangs. Those were really like dream cars of mine at the time. Supercharged, big power, V8 manual. And then as I got into college days, the interest of an exotic car was always there, and not just any exotic car, but a modified exotic car. Aston Martin came out with their Vantage, back in 2006, and that's really what changed the game as far as that brand goes. That body style is just so timeless. It's been out for 17 years now, and even to this day, it's such a beautiful car. So
we have some alignment on that because
okay, good.
We started the company originally in the UK in 2007.
Okay.
And right from the get-go, like Aston Martin Vantage exhaust was the first thing that we ever created and produced.
Really?
So so we were both getting into that from opposite ends, really, I guess, at the same time. So that was kind of a genesis vehicle for us too. I mean, first product we ever sold was an exhaust for one of those, first thing that we created for it. So yeah, similar time frames where we got that bug, I think.
Yeah, crazy how that aligns. And I mean, that's looking back now when that car came out 2006, that's 17 years ago now. And
don't say that, it makes me feel old.
And ironically, the same time that I've had my license for. So it makes me feel very old as well. But still just as passionate about cars, man. I mean, obviously that. I know you're passionate as well. So yeah.
Nice. And then you didn't get into the automotive industry right away, did you? You went in a slightly different path before you got involved with PFS, right?
Yeah. So I, first job bagging groceries. That was the youngest job you can get to make money. So I did that, and then from there, I actually worked at Kragen Auto Parts at the time. That then got bought out by O'Reilly Auto Parts, and I worked there for about 7 years. So O'Reilly Auto Parts was really like my first entry into working in automotive. Entry level. A lot of people that are car enthusiasts, that was the entry level. AutoZone, Checker, Shucks, Kragen, O'Reilly, all those advanced. So I did that for 7 years.
What year is it? Does it have air conditioning?
What's that?
What year is it? Does it have air conditioning? All that stuff.
Oh yeah, all the details on there, and you learn the ins and outs of all those cars, and a lot of the maintenance stuff. Not too many, performance things we're doing at O'Reilly Auto Parts, but I really learned the ins and outs of the maintenance packages, stuff like that, wear and tear items. And then what that allowed me to do is it got me into management. So I was one of the youngest assistant store managers in that territory at the time. And that carried me from high school into the college days. And that was really the first start for automotive. And then from there, pivoted over to something completely different and went to work for a bank. Did that for 4 years, wore the suit and tie every day. I didn't mind it.
Did that too.
Yeah, I didn't mind it though. Yeah. So I didn't mind it because at least every day you know what you're wearing. So you got 5 suits, 10 shirts to choose from, 10 ties. You switch it up, and I didn't mind that part of my life. But from there, that's when I had the opportunity to pivot, and really that was a big part of my life where I was choosing to stay in automotive, go back to automotive or stick to banking. And I was going to go into the private banking route. And I had this opportunity from my private banker at the time who introduced me to the former owner of PFS, looking for somebody to slowly start to help take over with some of the day-to-day operations, sales, alleviating some of the stress from his day-to-day life, continue to growing the company, because at the time the company was already expanding, but really it was just dominating the market. So they had done such a great job already, but he needed someone else to slowly start to groom and to help take over the day-to-day operations. So that was
great for a business owner to have somebody come in with a financial background too, right?
Yeah, and the structure behind it, definitely. As the company was expanding, there's a lot of policies, procedures, structures that I think I could bring to the table. In alignment that I'm just a diehard car enthusiast, right? And I had my years of customer service. Working for a bank, you have to have top-notch customer service or you won't make it. So that was all hand in hand with, hey, like this opportunity probably won't come around often. Do I go this route, take a leap of faith while I'm still relatively young, not married, don't have kids, or do I go super safe, keep the suit on and go private banking route? And I took a leap of faith, and 7 years later now I'm here. But the opportunity at PFS has just been absolutely amazing. The people you meet, the cars you're around. It
sure looks like that from the outside. I mean, I've been there a couple of times and seen your facility and stuff.
Yeah.
But from the outside, it sure looks like something that's grown rapidly and expanded and really is like a keystone of the automotive community in your area.
Yeah. Yeah, and really it's truly the team that makes it what it is. The technicians in the back are the guys who are doing the hard labor on these intricate installs, whether it's PPF, vinyl, ceramic coating, window tint, paint correction, performance. I'm just the guy who helps facilitate it, right, for the client and for the guys in the back. But the team here is absolutely amazing, and that's why I think the company has been so successful all these years. Since the get-go 20 years ago when it first started. But yeah, this space with what we do in Orange County, California, there's so many automotive companies that are based out of here that we partner with. And it's been really cool to kind of see how things have grown over the years.
Yeah, super strong car culture in that area from what I can see.
Yeah.
So then this move that you made from banking to developing PFS into what it is now, that kind of puts you in the position now to where you can go back to when the Vantage came out and when you really wanted to have one and you were in an opportunity to pick one up.
Yeah.
So outside of the fact that was like, a dream car for you from the first time that it was launched, now that you were in a position to go, hey, I'm going to buy a fun, cool project car.
Yeah.
Outside of that specific thing, what made you choose this one and not something else? What made you choose an Aston and a Vantage and not a different vehicle?
Yeah, so I've had a couple Aston Martins in the past because they were the dream car of mine. Being here at PFS, you see everything. Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, Bugatti, Koenigsegg, Porsche. Every car that you can imagine comes through here, and you do get a little bit numb to it. But they're all still cars that have been out of my reach in range for what you can afford. So Aston Martin has really stuck with me. It's the brand that is an exotic brand. It's super unique. It's the gentleman driver. Everyone respects the brand. You don't see a lot of them on the road. But even something that's more cool is that you can attain this brand at a fairly entry-level cost. And that's why I think I say it all the time, that people are sleeping on the brand, because they produce cars that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, 500,000, the new Valkyrie and stuff, over $1 million. But the secondhand market, third-hand market, you can get these cars for an absolute steal, and it's a lot of bang for the buck. So how I chose the Aston Martin kind of leads into working with the boys over at DDE. So we decided we'd work with them over the years. I've been really close friends since I started working at PFS, about 7 years now. And outside of PFS, we hang out. We've done birthdays together and stuff. So I've always been around them and been on camera with them. But we decided to go one step further and try this challenge of myself versus Mia, Damon's daughter, and doing this build-off with a budget supercar. So immediately, as soon as he said that, I'm all in. Let's do it. I currently don't have a car that I'm building, so it's a perfect time to do it. And I know the brand. So as soon as we said what the budget was, $60,000, and you get something that you can build that's going to be wild, it's going to do great online for views, it's something that they haven't worked on, my go-to immediately was Aston Martin. And the go-to for sure was first-gen Aston Martin Vantage, and that starts off at the 06 model and up. I chose going with the first-gen Aston in a 4.3 motor, so a little bit smaller than the 4.7, but this time it had to be a manual. I've had sport shift in the past, but manual was the go-to option, and I don't regret it ever since. So it's a manual, it's a V8, the doors go up a little bit, it's the brand, it is something that you can modify. And because of my knowledge of Velocity AP, it allowed me to already kind of think ahead of how I wanted to build the car.
So because you were buying this, I mean, there's a personal passion, interest project, which is interesting. Having a manual, 100% agree with you on that. I mean, we've both been blessed in that we've probably driven everything under the sun other than the, $4 or $5 million hypercars, and maybe you've driven some of those. But, for something that you're going to be able to enjoy,
yeah.
I think we're of similar mind, that we're often looking at it like, well, the price tag's interesting, the cachet is interesting, whether it holds its value or not is interesting, but ultimately we're probably pretty similar, that we're like, hey, I want a fun experience, and that checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
But then you're also buying it as a project car, so presumably before you made the decision to do that, you had to have gone through some sort of process of like, hey, what can I do with this car when I get it? Which is a really interesting question, because we see that a ton with customers, and I'm sure you guys do too. And being on our side of things in the aftermarket as opposed to the OEMs, it's really interesting to hear people ask a whole bunch of questions about what they can do to the car, and then find out half the time they haven't even bought it yet.
Yeah.
Because this is something that they clearly want to do for enjoyment, and because it's fun for them to personalize it. So what was the process like for you to go, okay, we got to build a project car because that's the gig for this show. What did you do in advance of buying that to go, okay, these are all the things that I can do to it?
Yeah. So that's kind of where the hard work comes in. There's one thing to have a budget for a car. In the $60,000 budget, I mean, the Aston Martin Vantage, you can maybe find a really high mile Ferrari 360. Lamborghini, you're not getting anything. 5 years ago, maybe a salvage Gallardo. Porsche, a lot of Porsches that you can definitely find in that budget. McLaren, you're not finding anything for $60,000. So
not that you want anyway.
No, not that you want. So knowing that was the brand I wanted to go with, it made it easy to start doing research on it. And that's the stuff that people don't see is you can be really savvy with your money if you do the research on what parts to buy, what not to buy, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I say take pride in it, but I've geeked out on being on the forums for years, right? Early days, I think over 1,000 posts. That was a decade ago now. But all that time spent during the early years of having a car, of doing the research online, going on the forums, being up till 2 a.m, 3 a.m, not doing homework for school, but doing homework for my car, of kind of researching what to buy, getting the best deals, buying parts online that were used. All of those things have helped me now with knowing how to modify a car, and that you don't have to spend a ton of money to do that. So with the Aston, I've been on the Aston forums for years now, and I mean, there is unlimited knowledge online now, especially with YouTube and anything else. Like, you can find anything. Someone's already done it. So all it takes is time, right? And if you have the time to go...
There's a great couple of groups too, and a website that somebody in the UK has created. I think it's Aston DIY as well.
Yeah.
With interchange parts for these as well, like things that you can buy that are direct replacement parts, be they Ford, Jaguar, whatever. So there's a super community with Aston. There
is, and the Aston Martin Facebook groups as well. So all of that basically has compiled into, I'm scared to admit, probably hundreds of hours of research that my wife doesn't love. That I'm sitting there at night and I'm on the laptop looking at every Aston Martin part available for sale in the world, or on eBay, or on looking at race teams if you can buy parts from them. So with all of that, the research that I put into that, I knew going into this challenge that not only could I build this car on a budget, but I know what parts I want to use for it to accomplish the full package that people have not seen online, and definitely not on the DD channel. That I kind of knew going into it what I can do with not a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a super interesting thing to say, because I'm sure there's a ton of people who've been exposed to you on the DDE channel and seen this project car and this build, for whom they might assume that Jason just bought this car for this project and they picked this and whatever, and this is all new to him. But you, like you said, you've kind of been embedded in that community for a long time and been pretty active in it for a long time. So it kind of ties into another question that we had, which was, if for somebody else who's perhaps not in your position, because not most of the Aston buyers are probably not going to be featured on DDE, but for somebody who's looking at this and going, okay, I didn't know that you could do that with this car. I think you're picking this project has probably exposed a younger generation of buyers, or a new generation of buyers who never really considered this car as a platform that they could work with and do something cool and personalized. You've obviously got several years of research and experience and a very patient wife. But for somebody who's coming into this cold, who's maybe seen your videos and said, hey man, I didn't know you could do that. That is a really cool car. That seems like a lot of value. What would your advice be to them? Let's say they don't have the budget to go and do everything that you did all at once, or they're looking at it like, this is something that I want to do over the course of a particular period of time. What would your advice be to somebody who's like shopping for one of these, wants to look at it as a project car because of what you've introduced them to?
Yeah, so that's actually really easy to answer, because I have always been, still am, in the mindset of being budget friendly. With previous cars, they've always been cars you go to the bank, you get a loan for, right? So I don't have unlimited budgets just to buy cars. So to this day, I still have to plan things strategically to buy stuff on a budget, or have a loan involved, or whatever it might be. So if you're looking to get into a Gen 1 Aston Martin, right now the market is still great on it. Right now you can buy one all day long for mid 40,000 US. Some nicer lower mile ones in the 50,000 range. So getting into that car, if you have a steady income, or you have the means to get a bank loan for it, you're in. You've got your entry level supercar. You start off with that. What you're going to be wanting to do is, you don't want to go online and just buy the first car you buy, or you find. You want to do your research for probably a few months and start to figure out what the market's like for this specific brand. Do you want the 4.3 motor? Do you want the 4.7 motor? Do you want the manual? Do you want the sport shift? Do you want a coupe, roadster? Once you can kind of put in your own process of understanding, okay, manual car is going to fetch this much more, 4.7 is going to fetch this much more, and if you want both of those, it's going to fetch a lot more, or V12, and so on and so forth. So doing your own research to understand what is good value is the first thing you want to do. You don't want to go and buy a car that is at your closest dealership right away without really understanding if it's a good price or not. And what that'll allow you to do is negotiate with either the dealership or private seller of, hey, like, I've done my research, this car's amazing, I really want it, but I think it's priced at, 5,000 less or 1,000 less, or
And you can
maybe
speak with some authority at that point.
yeah, of course, yeah, because you need to go in anywhere and just lowball people. If the car is a great car, it's a good buy. We joked about it with this Aston Martin with Dave, is that, oh, you should have negotiated more off of it. Yeah, it's got some damage on there. I probably should have gotten a couple thousand off of it, but I didn't want to insult the guy because it's a black on black car, low miles, 38,000 miles on it, manual, the right setup. It was local as well. So it made sense where we were at with the price at 42,000. But yeah, part of all that was doing my research to understand why it was worth 42,000, right? So if you're looking to get into this car, I'd say as of right now, that's the range you're looking at on the lower side, because I got one that was a little bit more beat up. We knew we were going to modify the car, but yeah, mid 40s to 50,000 is probably the range you are looking at to get yourself into one of those. But you've got to do the research. Don't go off of my word only. Don't go off of what you find on YouTube and stuff. Spend a couple months and just and look and see what makes sense for you, the right spec and all that stuff. If you're going to wrap the car a different color, it's okay to get the wrong color right. But if you're not planning on doing all these crazy mods, it might make sense to spend a little bit more money to get the right one up front and do it right the first time. But
understand what's a rare combination that might be worth a little more money, and we're fortunate too that we live in a time where you have bring a trailer to look at public auction results that are pretty transparent and see a lot of details on cars as benchmarks, and you got courses and resources like Exotic Car Hacks who have talked about Astons and have a pretty comprehensive research package and information for people to shortcut the process a little bit and go, okay, well, I could spend 6 months researching this, or I could go get the information from a couple places where it's been collated and get some guidance. So, yeah, there's definitely some good resources out there.
It's unlimited, man. It's 2025, and there is everything everywhere online to get more data and research on anything and everything, right? So part of all this, people have actually asked of, hey, dude, we always knew this brand and this car was like a good deal, like, not just me alone, but like it's bringing awareness, so more people start picking these up. That's great for the community because you have more Aston, buyers and drivers. But it also could adversely adjust the price up and start seeing a small price hike because people start buying these cars because it's such a great value. So again, double-edged sword.
Them, right?
Yeah, double-edged sword, and they are undervalued, man. I mean, we both know that it's a lot of car for the money. And it's cool, and I don't see it going up too crazy, but I do see this market changing and that this brand gets the attention that it deserves.
Mm-hmm. So that's acquiring the car, doing some research on it and figuring out what those price points should be.
Yeah.
You've modified lots of cars. You kind of modify cars for a living. So if somebody's then found the car that they want, or they have an idea of what they're looking for and what their price points and budgets should be, but they want to do it as a project car. Maybe they've been inspired by what you've done and realized that this is a pretty cool platform.
Yeah.
Leaving aside the fact that obviously you worked with us on this project, in general, what would your advice be to people about how to figure out what they want to do to it if they want to personalize it?
Yeah, so that's the exciting part. A lot of people say getting the car is the exciting part. It is for a day. The fun part for me is planning a build. I can't tell you how much time I put into doing this. I can't tell you how many lists you'll find on my computers and phones of all the mods I want to do to a car. It's stupid. But I do that because what it does is it puts in my head the game plan and the goal, and it allows me to start putting a vision together, how it's going to look, sound, perform, and all that stuff. So if you're looking to modify this car, if you go onto the forums, it's a great place. Start doing your research collectively. And you can kind of see what brands stand out. Obviously, the brand that stood out to me was Velocity, right? And I had a Jaguar back in the day, my Jaguar F-Type, and that was the first time I heard of Velocity AP. This was actually when I started working at PFS 7 years ago. And, without tooting your horn, Stuart, like I just saw that your name was always online. It was always there. You're always there to support people and give insider input for enthusiasts that were like-minded. And so I thought, this Velocity company seems to be pretty big in the Jaguar scene right now, right? And collectively, I saw over those 2 years I owned the car that like everyone was using Velocity. Like if you knew the brand, you knew you were using Velocity AP. A lot of great brands out in the market, nothing wrong with it, but Velocity was a enthusiast that was involved in the forums, and they also made the parts. They understood what was necessary. So when I got the Aston Martin and I started doing research on it, Velocity's name stood out, same thing on the forums, right? So when I started to pick and choose parts on the car, I wanted to use something that was a good reputation, and also somebody I could talk to if I have an issue with something or I have a question on, hey, does this part work with this? Hey, have you tracked the car? How does that work like this? I knew that I could call Stuart and talk to him because he'd be able to give me real world answers, not just selling me a product. So when I did this build, first brand that came up in my mind was Velocity AP, right?
We've been in Aston for a long time, actually since before Jag, so that's
long time,
like a core part of our DNA.
Totally.
So it sounds like then your approach and what you would suggest to people is, rather than just going like, oh, maybe this, maybe that, like have a think about where you want to end up. Start putting together some, a spreadsheet or some math or a plan, and start looking at like how much you want to spend and what you can get for it, and kind of get a vision together and start figuring that out before you start buying parts.
100%. Putting the build together again is the most exciting part. Understanding what parts you want on the car, and then starting to do the research on what brands are out there that offer those parts, right? Just because something is super cheap definitely doesn't mean that's the part you should buy. Just because it's super expensive also doesn't mean that's why you should buy it. So doing the research on understanding why you want that part and why it's the best part for the car is really the end game for all of it. But yeah, you've got to enjoy the build process and the planning, because to me, that's the most exciting part. If you ask anybody who's done building their car, what do? They go, all right, that was fun, time to sell, right? So I've been the absolute biggest advocate on telling people, mod your car slowly in phases to understand why you're modifying it and really understand each feature and how it changes the car so you can enjoy it longer, right? Versus just dumping all the money in the world, if you have it, and being done and going, all right, that was fun. What's next? So enjoy the build process thoroughly. That's always my biggest advice with it. Plan it out, and then you can execute it just one by one.
So that being said, because of the nature of the project that you're in now, a big chunk of what you did kind of happen all in one fell swoop while the car was up here.
Sure.
And we were pretty compressed, and the weather's a little cold up here at this time of year, so I don't think you got a huge chance to experience it. But you got the car back in California now.
Yes.
And I know you've driven it because I've seen a few videos. So now that you've had your opportunity to wrap your arms around it, tell us what you think about it. Tell us what you think about the impact that the modifications had. And then, now that you've driven it, is there anything that you think you might want to tinker with or change?
Yeah, so I've had the car back here for a few weeks now. I posted a couple of videos up of some exhaust clips, and hands down, like the way this car sounds is the best feeling driving the car. Like this is the exciting element, the thrill of every time I get in the Aston Martin, that this thing just absolutely rips. It absolutely screams. The sound that comes from it is...
you have a very you have like the loudest you could
possibly
get.
Yeah.
Like, and I've driven cars with that setup. That feels like driving a race car on the road every time you drive it.
It does. And that was part of all this is, full extreme with the DD build and go as loud as possible. But it sounds really, really good. Low speed, obviously, it's excessive. It's very race car. But at watt and open throttle and the high RPMs, it sounds so good. It has that Aston tone that is still there. But it's just a screaming V8 that revs out to 7,500 RPM. Since I've had it back, I've had it at selective shows. We've done a few PFS drives, DD drives. Just took it out this past weekend. And driving the car definitely has its experience with it. It's manual. The clutch is now brand new. It's a night and day difference between the stock clutch that was going out. The brakes, immediately you can feel the brakes, but that is part of the process that I will enjoy the most once we can track the car and really see that it holds up to the excess of heat, more bite to it with the pads. But yeah, immediately the power pack and the exhaust on the car is just intoxicating. And so the short term of having it at shows has been really cool. Driving on the street it's loud. Part of the reason why it's registered in Canada. I don't know if it would fly in California because this has full straight pipe exhaust on it. But I do
fix it ticket.
Yeah, and so I truly look forward to bringing this to the track, and that's something that we're going to be working on in the coming weeks on getting out on track soon.
Well, that's awesome. I look forward to seeing some of that. I was curious how you felt about it because obviously that's like a real loud setup, and
yeah,
we've got such a range of customers. This is DDE car; it's going to be a loud car. I was curious whether you'd want it. You after you've driven it for a few weeks, you might say, "Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing," but maybe I need to tone it back a little bit because we got people that want everywhere in that range, and we have stuff to cater for them.
Yeah.
And you're on that end.
So I can get away with it because the car's not a daily driver right now.
Sure.
It is something that we're still building in different increments on, did the wheels and suspension, we did the wrap, we did the exhaust, clutch, power. Next is the aero on it, right? Once it's done, I will be daily driving the car and switching it out and taking it, all over the place. That's why we built it. We didn't build it just to be a show car or just to sound loud. It's going to be used. But with that, yeah, you don't have to do the full beans of full straight pipe. I think that the cool thing about what you guys offer with this exhaust setup is that there's 4 sections on this exhaust. So you could do 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 1 out of 4. I know the back box alone from Velocity completely transforms the car. So if you were on that budget or if you're on that mindset of wanting to keep it a little bit more tame, you can do any of those options on there. And I don't know what the configuration would be, but I'm sure there's probably over a dozen configurations you can really do with that.
If you start daily driving the car and it's a little too much, we'll talk. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I was just thinking headphones and a helmet on. That was going to be the fix for that while I'm driving to work every day.
That's always an option, too.
Yeah.
You got all the black on. You can be the black pig.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool. Well, it was really great to talk to you. We always appreciate your feedback. It was super to have you up here, and we, like I said, it was compressed. We wanted to get a little bit more in-depth, behind-the-scenes, enthusiast-based information from you, when we had the time. So it was a great opportunity to do that. Sounds like we're hoping maybe you might come up here in the summertime, maybe.
Yeah.
The track's open. And
I want to get back there.
Some wine tasting. So.
Yeah, I want to get back there as soon as possible. And I want to say one more thing. I mean, working with you and your team has been awesome. When you do these builds like this, especially when you're in an environment where you're a content creator, a lot of the time you might see online where people just use whatever parts are, quote unquote free, and people throw stuff, their brand at them. And I don't really believe in that process. I believe in a vision and executing it. And I want to use brands and partner with companies that have that same vision, right? If I need to pay for parts, no problem. I'd rather pay for something that I really want on the car than to have something for free that I don't want, right? And I think there's something that's lost now with content creation, that staying true to your brand and your vision and goal and stuff is sometimes hard to do in the abyss of all of this. So truly, I mean it. When I'm working with Velocity AP, it's been great because all the parts that I want on the car were executed perfect. The sound was amazing. The quality is amazing. Going up to Canada and visiting the facility and getting an explanation of why you guys built things a certain way, being a part of the actual install. Obviously, I didn't get my hands dirty, but being there with Brandon and the guys who were thoroughly enjoying working on the car, and they were just as excited as I was to get the car built. That's cool to me. So working with Velocity AP was continuing to build a relationship for future builds. It wasn't just
had a ton of fun on it.
Yeah, it wasn't just let's work with Stuart on this build and then see ya. For me, it's cool to work with brands that believe in the process and believe in your vision, and in that relationship, you can grow the community. And I've said it numerous times. I want nothing more than to build the Aston brand as far as it can go. Our buddy James JWW is pushing it over in the UK. I want to be that guy for the US that takes this brand to the next level. And I've been doing it for 7 years now and boring people who Aston Martin's the brand. I'm telling you, it's the brand. And I really think there's a lot of cool things that you've been doing over there, your team's been doing, that I've been trying to do over here. And I do believe that there's a bigger picture with all this and growing the brand with PFS, DDE, Velocity, and Aston Martin. There's a lot of cool stuff that we'll continue to do. And I know we briefly spoke about Project Vulcan. If some of the people that are watching this have seen me talk about that in the past, that project will happen. I 100% will make that build happen. And, you know, you and I have talked off camera a little bit about how to execute it the right way. And so who knows, that might be a future SEMA build. I've never done SEMA. And, you know, it's January now. There's 10 months. It might be a stretch, but there might be something really cool to see
not
out
a
of that.
SEMA build in history was ever put together and ready to go more than 36 hours in advance of the show starting.
That's true.
I've been there and seen people taping parts onto the
Yeah.
car. Every SEMA build is a scramble. That's
Yeah.
the truth.
So who knows? There might be more Aston content with the two of us with that future build. For now,
That would be super cool.
I think so. I think that would be a game changer, and not to shy away from this current build because it's been absolutely amazing, and it's only the beginning of this build. But I do think that build that we have been talking about would take the brand and the platform outside of the first gen to a whole new level. So I do look forward to discussing that more with you. But for now, I truly mean it when I say it's been a pleasure working with you guys, and I definitely will be back up in Canada for this stuff.
Likewise.
So.
I mean, we like yourselves, I'm sure at PFS you're approached by people all the time who are looking for a discount or looking for some product or looking to work with you on things. It's very hard to assess who you should work with because you can't work with everyone. And, you know, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
We see people asking and realize that they're just asking 10 people and they're going to pick whatever they get for free.
Yeah.
Because we often get asked and then see them pop up and they're promoting a competitor's product maybe, and we're like, okay, well, you didn't want to work with us. You just wanted to work with someone who would give you something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we were really happy to work with you, because I know you're an Aston enthusiast. I know we can build a relationship over the long term. And, you know, we're talking about advice for people buying cars and building cars, but you know, for people and companies that are in the automotive space, it's challenging to navigate and figure out who you should work with. And for us, it really comes down to, like, can we build a long-term relationship with this person? It's not just about this one thing. It's about, can we create something together that benefits both of us? Sure, but that also is going to continue to generate value for the community. And if we focus on that value and we focus on how can we bring value and fun and experience and support to this broader car community or Mark-specific community, you know, we don't have to worry so much about the specifics because we're all going to win together. So that's why we wanted to work with you as soon as we found out about it, and we're really glad you picked us.
I appreciate it, man. It's exciting stuff for sure, and I know it's only the beginning. So this build is rad.
Awesome.
And we enjoyed it. I can't wait to bring it up to take it out on track, and for you guys to hear it at Watt, because that's one thing we did get to do outside of the dyno. It'd be really cool to have that car up there with full aero, everything else. And I think there's a couple more things on this one we can still dial in with fewer products that we were talking about. So we might have to incorporate that in the coming weeks for sure.
Well, it was great having you on. It sounds like you need to start looking at your travel plans and convincing your wife that you're going to come to a wine-growing region.
I'm going regardless, man. I'll buy her a bottle of wine here, and I'll fly out there and bring the car up there. So
perfect. Yeah. Okay, man. Well, thank you again for your time. Super appreciate it, and we'll see you here soon.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Stuart.
You got it.
All right, we'll see you.